Y'all, I'm still on this wonderful, wonderful country walk. Let me reposition that phone so I can hold it steady. All right, so here was something I was thinking about as I was reflecting over here. One of my jobs, one of my many jobs that I've had over the several careers that I have had. I've had like 3 to 4 careers. At this point, I'm 40, depending on how you define career. It's a conversation for another day, but we tend to have about 3 to 4 careers on average in the U.S. Those were some data points from the Bureau of Labor Statistics pre-pandemic. I don't know how the pandemic has affected that. Haven't looked at the data. Depending on how you define career, on average, we have 3 to 4 careers across our lifetime. About like 20 years ago, it was more like 2 to 3, right? So what you notice is there's an increase in the number of careers, which shows to me a good thing. People have multiple interests typically, and it's okay if you're more of a uni interest kind of person, like you just have a singular focus. I have a lot of different interests, I have a lot of different skills, so I've had a lot of different careers. Sometimes when people who aren't aware of this or don't understand this, or they are entrenched in the idea that you have to follow a certain path, you have to have a niche, you have to do things in this linear fashion, they don't really understand it. I have a lot of strengths, I have a lot of skills to offer. Oh, y'all, there is a giant snapping turtle over here. Look at this. I'm gonna turn this phone around. Can y'all see that? Look at that thing. Look at that thing. Hey, boy, don't bite me. You too slow to catch me. I see you creeping in. Hey, man, I ain't gonna hurt you. Can you see that? Look at that. Oh my goodness. Okay, look, we gonna check this thing. This thing is, look. This is why I love nature, man. Look at this. Look at this fella. Hey, Donatello, man, you was always my favorite, bruh. Okay, I love you, man. You my boy, man. You was smart. You was strong. You was that dude, in my opinion. Okay, you was always my favorite, Donatello. All right, bet. All right, okay. Hey, they say stop and smell the roses. Sometimes you gotta stop and dap up the Ninja Turtles, man. You know what I'm saying? All right, what was I talking about? All right, that was such an ADHD moment, but that was beautiful, man. I love it. I embrace it. It's a strength. I embrace the moment. So I totally forgot what I was talking about, but now I got another thought in my head. We're gonna talk about that. This is how I roll. I don't edit these. I just throw them out there. I am who I am, boy. So a career I had a while back. Not that while back, but a while back. I was a career counselor at a university, large public university. Same one I went to undergrad to. So there was a lot of feelings that I had going there because undergrad was a rough time for me. It was a very rough time for me. And I went into a career path that had some strengths, but it wasn't really a good fit, but I learned some good things from it. So what I felt like when I had this opportunity to come back and work at the university that I barely graduated from undergrad as a career counselor, after I had gone to grad school and all this stuff, this was like 10 years after undergrad, I felt like I was coming back to that campus to find a version of myself that I thought that I lost. Ooh, and that version is back, better than ever, stronger than ever, smarter than ever, which means y'all in trouble. Nah. The fools are in trouble. Y'all ain't in trouble. Nah, I'm playing, y'all. Kinda. So anyway, look, I was at this gig that I had, university career counselor. At universities, right, there's multiple colleges, multiple schools at a university. That's what makes it a university. It's a collection of different schools. And so the school that I was working for, serving, I should say, was a school for science, right, at this university, College of Sciences, if you want to call it that. And at a College of Science, at this specific one, you'd have majors like chemistry and physics and statistics and biology and all that kind of stuff, probably around 18, 24 majors, something like that. And I had 4,100 students solely. I was the sole career counselor for that entire college. So first year undergrads, all the way through PhD, all the way through students who graduated about like a year after graduation. Those were all my students. I had to serve them individually through career counseling appointments, career coaching appointments. I also had to develop all the career programming for them. Like, how are we gonna create workshops and bring in employers to help network with you and stuff like this, right? So I had a lot about career. But something I had different for me was, one, I was bringing the perspective of a black man who had been on this campus before, a black neurodivergent dyslexic man. And in addition to that, I had prior work experience in a different career path. And I also I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I'm a certified clinical mental health counselor. I'm a national certified counselor. A lot of things. So I was bringing this mental health component. Mental health and career are not separate, okay? If your mental health is not doing well, you're having some significant challenges, your career is going to be impacted. If your career is really becoming toxic or becoming just not allowing you to work, right? It's going to impact your mental health, right? So I would incorporate things that were mental health into that career programming because there's a synergy there that we need to recognize. And there's a lot of stories I have from that. I do believe I was very good at what I did. And here's something that would come up, a message that I would like current students, future students, parents of students to understand. A lot of times I would get students who would come to me for their resumes or trying to get good jobs, good internships, good research experience, get into good graduate programs, figure out this whole thing, right? And maybe they're like, I need to change my major. I need to add a minor, or maybe I could take this class. And they would say, how do you think this makes me look? Do you think I should do this minor? Does that look good? And I would take their resume and I would turn it upside down. I would turn it face down and I would say, what do you mean by good? Define good. Who are you looking good for? And what does looking good do for your career? What skills does looking good give you? What strengths and experiences does looking good give you? We need to stop box checking. Our society, this is what capitalism does, okay? Because capitalism has to keep growing and growing and growing and growing, or at least the current version that we have of it now. And what that does is it continues to ramp up the requirements for things. Credentialism, okay? You gotta have more credentials. For example, my dad is in a career where he makes a good amount of money, but if I wanted to enter that career in this day and age, I'd need to have an engineering degree and about 1 to 2 years of experience in engineering at the most. My dad has an English degree, okay? But he got into that at the 80s. You can't do that now because capitalism keeps ramping up, money becomes more, and the credentialism comes out. Well, we need people to have this and have this, but we're not really looking at the skills and the strengths that they have. Well, that mentality trickles down to the people who are searching for the jobs, right? The students who are trying to learn. And they're just listening to their parents, they're doing their best, they're trying to figure this whole thing out because the unwritten rules are unwritten. They're not clear. And so I would turn that resume face down and I would ask them some questions, right? Why did you get into the major that you got into? And one of the things that I would notice is if a student had a teacher that they really liked in high school, they were really good at teaching that class, they learned a lot, and maybe that teacher was like, man, you're really good at this. You are good at this. You should do this in college. That feels good, especially in the STEM area because we push STEM up, which it is important, but I'm a social scientist. Let me tell you how important that is, okay? That's our world runs on communication, all right? And so they get in these fields and they're like, oh, this makes sense. This is good. There's money here. People are telling me I'm good, but they're not really thinking about what their strengths are, what they want to do, how this is going to look for them, the values in their life, and how does that career align with those values? Do you want to be geographically close to your family? Well, that's going to change certain career options, right? Of course, we have remote work now, but not all industries are good fits for remote work too. So that can change career options. You're going to have a few different careers in your life, more than likely. There's no need to rush into things. And also, we have to think about what are the skills that we want to develop within ourselves. If you want to look at some weaknesses and develop those, go for it. Do that. I would recommend focusing on your strengths for the most part. Okay, not in complete avoidance of your deficits and your weaknesses. Never that. But we need to double down on our strengths. So anyway, I'll be talking to these students about these aspects of their career because they're concerned, they're worried. You need to get experience, okay? And you need to be able to communicate that experience. No one can advocate for yourself as good as you can advocate for yourself. But in order to advocate for yourself, you have to understand yourself. You need some metacognition. It's thinking about thinking. How do you know your process of thinking and solving problems is strong? How do you know it's good? Just because you think you're smart and you just step into the room and you just do this thing? Nah, man. You need to spend some time thinking about your process of thinking. How do you approach it? Do you only think about things from your perspective? What have you read from people who don't look like you? Do you read books written by women, written by Black women, written by disabled folks, written by people from outside the US? You gotta have some experiences outside of yourself. This is a big world. We got over 7 billion people in this world, right? There's a lot going on. Sometimes that can be challenging for me as a Black man because my experience is so unique as a Black man, right? And I want people to see my experiences. I want people to validate my experiences. Can't control what other people think and believe. I'm also not going to let racist beliefs come down upon me and change my directions either. I got to focus on my strengths, right? So metacognition, we got to think about our thinking processes. Another thing is reading for insight. There's one book I think is mandatory reading for every human. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I read it in my master's program. It's a very, very small book. Viktor Frankl was in the Holocaust. He was a psychiatrist, Jewish man. His family was taken from him. He says he was in Auschwitz. There's some debate about whether he was really in Auschwitz, but he was definitely in a concentration camp. And I don't care if you were in Auschwitz or concentration camp XYZ. It's a concentration camp. It's a horrible experience, right? And so the randomness of death and violence at the concentration camp was enough to drive the men and the women, well, they separated the men and women. It was enough to drive the men around him mad, right? Crazy mad, like that, not like angry mad, crazy mad, depressed, broken. And so he realized he had to try to figure something out because he couldn't apply the normal controls that he had over his life to manage the situation. The situation had changed. And one of the things was getting to see the sunrise gave him meaning. Just that simple. Just like going on these walks helped to give me some meaning. I love seeing that sun. I love feeling the air on my skin. I love thinking about my thinking. I say all that because you need to understand your purpose. You need to recognize the constraints of the situation. We are a part of it. We are not the center. How do we use our strengths and recognition of our weaknesses to do our best within that system? It doesn't happen from box checking. It doesn't happen from saying, I gotta look good on paper. I gotta get this minor so I can feel good. It happens by taking some time to understand who we are, what we want for our lives. Students, that sounds overwhelming. It sounds non-concrete, but it is. When you're in undergrad, the very first thing to do is to transition well. Transitions are so important in our lives. We only have a few really big transitions in our lives, okay? Like birth, marriage, if you choose to get married, college and college graduation, if you choose to graduate from college, high school graduation, if you choose to graduate from high school, death, we all die. It's the biggest transition, right? Well, maybe life is the biggest transition. I don't know. There's ADHD brain going wild. But anyway, you got to respect that transition. Studies show that students who spend the time transitioning well, and let me define transitioning well, understanding how to manage yourself now that you're not at mom and dad's or your guardians or grandma and pep-peps or whoever your folks were that helped to raise you or that you were staying with until you went to college, right? They're not managing you anymore. You got to manage yourself. College is training wheels, all right? Take that time to think about what life will look like when you're fully out there in the world. You start to manage yourself. You gotta have some fun, but you need some good sleep habits, right? You gotta go to class, and getting good grades is important, but it's not of the utmost important. My students who had 4.0s, 3.8s and higher, but one piece of work experience or no work experience, they had a hard time finding a gig. My students with 2.7s to like 3.2s, which is still strong GPA, who had a lot of work experience, they understood the world of work. And understanding the world of work helped them to understand themselves. And employers were able to see that when they talk to them. This person communicates closer to the people, to the adults I work with, is what the recruiter is thinking. They're a safer choice. Because the recruitment process is really just a risk assessment process. That recruiter is a person. That recruiter has a job. That recruiter might have a family. They have a life outside of work. They want to pay their bills. They want to go home. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy their life. Their job is measured on quality of candidates they bring in. Are you that quality candidate? They don't know. You got to make them feel safe. Communication is how we make people feel safe. That's not a STEM thing. I'm not doubting on STEM, but we prioritize that a little bit too much, right? I said a lot there. I think this is my longest video. I don't know if anyone will even make it this long, so I'm gonna stop right now. Peace.